Today, we're diving deep into the energies of June 2026. This is not just a monthly astrology forecast. This is a lesson in understanding the language of astrology and cosmos itself, because astrology is not about predicting your future. It's about understanding the energetic weather. Just like you would dress differently for a thunderstorm than you would for a sunny day, astrology helps us understand the spiritual climate we're walking through. This month is especially important because we're living through one of the biggest astrological transitions of our lifetime. Several outer planets have recently changed signs, meaning the collective story is shifting. June is asking us to stop learning about our power and start embodying the divine feminine. This is the month where wisdom becomes action. Let's begin by understanding the players involved.
Welcome to Peace Out Witches. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Stacy.
And here we'd like to dive deep in all things divine feminine energies, astrology, and how we can live our soul purpose and how we could connect to that.
Let's talk a little bit first before we dig deep into June energies. Let's talk a little bit about why we even follow the planets and what each of the planets kind of does. Because I think it's hard to understand the June energies, even, or the energies of each month astrologically, if you don't first understand why we look at the planets and then what each of those planets represent.
So, in astrology, the planets represent different parts of our psyche. They're different energetic forces that work within us and around us. And so, everyone is affected by where they are in transit during any given time. And so, we like to think of these planets and what they represent and their energies as a way to hone in on what may be going on inside of us that doesn't necessarily feel like us. The planets are like the actors, and the houses astrologically are the stages. And what that means is that each planet and each zodiac represents a different energy in our psyche. And so this changes expression. The actor changes how they present themselves and what they're wearing in costume and how they feel inside and what's going on in their life based on the outside influences of these zodiac signs and planets.
Well, and the reason that it's easy to think about it that way is that the planets do not move as fast as the astrological signs do. So the astrological signs are the stars in the sky, and they are going to be moving at a quicker rate. And then the planets are moving at a much slower rate because, of course, they don't move around the planet within 24 hours. And the stars are moving around in, a 12-month cycle or 13-month cycle if we were to kind of not look at the Gregorian calendar. And so that is why the astrological signs are the players, because they are the ones that are constantly moving and changing. And the scene, that's only changing every once in a while. It's only changing once the planet moves into transition. There are certain planets that move faster, or certain parts of the astrological signs that we work with that move even on a daily basis, like the sun. And then there's the moon that moves on a 30-day cycle. And then there is the astrological planets that as they get further and further, they take longer and longer to get into certain parts or certain astrological signs in our astrology when we're looking at the planets and the skies. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how we can explore first each of the planets. So the first one that we look at is not necessarily a planet, but that would be the sun. So what does the sun represent?
The sun represents our identity, our purpose, our life force, confidence. It's our inner passionate purpose, our conscious awareness, and is shining light on all of the shadowy pieces that are within us. So it has a big role in how we operate every single day. It represents the essence of who we are. And it governs the direction of your life and the gifts that you're meant to bring forth in this world. So when it's in it, the sun changes signs, then it creates a theme of the month. So we're coming into the summer solstice, which is a very important transition. It is an opportunity for us, especially coming into the summer months, whether it's the sun will be more prevalent in our lives, to soak in the energy from the sun in order to not just physically have a positive transformation, but also we could use it for any kind of shadow work, light shadow work that we may choose to do this summer by shining in on those pieces that are maybe keeping us from our divine purpose and moving forward in your sacred service and your passions.
Perfect. And then we have, the moon. So, I mean, there is the sun sign and the moon sign. When you're looking at
Mhm.
your own astrology, there is where the sun was at during your birth, and then there's where the moon was at during your birth. So,
Mhm.
because the sun is a daily cycle, we really think of the sun as more of the divine masculine, that aspect that they wake up every morning and have the same amount of hormones, and then they lose them by evening. We think of the sun kind of more like that. And then the moon is what is the consciousness in the divine feminine. It is what rules kind of like our emotions. It's what rules the underneath parts of the life force. And it is a 31-day cycle. And so that 31-day cycle is thought to be more divine feminine because we bleed on a 31-day cycle. We do not have the same hormones on day one that we have on day 31. And so we are much more oriented and transitioned to the moon, and divine masculine is much more oriented and transition to the sun because of the way that they work. Okay, then we have Mercury. So Mercury is the ruler of messages, communication, thoughts, learning, speaking, technology, and travel. So we can think about when there is the sun or moon, or astrology wise, when they are in Mercury. For example, if Libra is in Mercury, it will be affecting, people with the Libra astrological sign in areas of communication, in areas of thought, learning, speaking, and areas of travel. It's really influencing how we conversate with each other, how we teach with each other. Mercury is also what would be attached to, all social media, any kind of writing, podcasts. Really, the way that we exchange information is going to be under this area of Mercury. That's why a lot of times we'll hear things about Mercury being in retrograde, because Mercury is really dealing with technology and communication. That's why it's often the one that, like, out in the world, we'll hear the most often.
Yes, and then our next planet is Venus, which is the sacred, considered the sacred divine feminine planet. And it rules love and beauty, relationships, money, pleasure, self-worth. Self-worth is a big piece of this. It tells us what we value. It shows us what attracts us and what we are bringing into our life. And for the priestess on the divine feminine journey, it reveals where we need healing around self worth, especially abundance in monetary worth and self love. So when Venus is direct and we're working through those pieces, this is the time of self care. Like, really, when you hear the word Venus in any kind of astrological forecast for any month or any year, whatever it is, self care theme, self care, self worth, digging deep into where you may have picked up something in your lineage, your life, your past life, whatever it is, that made you not feel worthy, and really working on that piece because it's very supportive of you working on that and has the divine feminine energy for you to have those breakthroughs.
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard men are from Mars, women are from Venus. This
Yeah.
is something that is really clear in our, current society. And so, even though that's a book from like the 90s, it's still very prevalent. So, we really do think of Venus as being more of that sacred feminine. It's going to, move in a more magnetizing way, and it's going to really run more of where the divine feminine psyche is going to be at that moment. So, for example, when Venus is underground, the divine feminine psyche is going to be more shadowy, more wild, more, magnetizing and more layered. And then when Venus is out in the open and wild, things are going to be more loving and sweet. There's going to be a lot of pleasure and self worth around. It's not going to be so shadowy. And so Venus
It'll be
does
more
really.
accessible. Those energies will be more accessible. And if you're feeling the shift, go with it because it's an opportunity to break through without having to even do the shadow piece. You could just bring it in, call it in, and use it and enjoy it because it is a wonderful feeling to be able to receive pleasure, able to receive abundance, and know that you're worthy of it.
Yeah, so Venus is really just that part that rules a lot of what we would see in the divine feminine. And the divine feminine is really about expanding. And so that is part of why we in there as well, because when we believe in our own expansion, then we are able to contain and hold more within that expansion. Then we have Mars. So women are from Venus, then men must be from Mars. So that's our sacred warrior. He really is our divine masculine. Mars is about action, about the things that we desire and call into our life, about motivation, about a deep sexual energy that is constant, not monthly. And then courage. Mars really shows us how to move forward. He is the fire that turns dreams into reality. And Mars is really our action oriented planet. That's part of why we've got women are from Venus and men are from Mars, because Mars is more of that, let's take action. And Venus is more of the, how can I bring love into, to see how it will affect this or that versus just going directly in with action before maybe even thinking fully.
Yeah, it definitely inspires divine action and allows you to push forward. The energy of it will allow you to push forward in ways that you may not have in the past.
Hmm.
That so harnessing as we go through each one and you're thinking about this and you're listening to a forecast and you hear Mars is direct, Mars is allowing you to take action, then think about those things in your life that you've been ready to take action on, and Mars will give you that oomph or that energy to actually start the process. That doesn't mean you need to take all the action at once. Never recommended. Just take a step and then take another, and Mars will back you up.
All right, next we have Jupiter. So Jupiter is our sacred teacher. Jupiter is going to rule abundance, expansion, growth, spiritual wisdom, higher learning. Jupiter magnifies everything that it touches. And you can really think of Jupiter as the cosmic amplifier. It is the thing that is going to amplify any of the energies that are currently going on. So when we see Jupiter in certain astrological signs, for example, it's going to heighten the things in that astrological sign. It's going to heighten the things going around, in that time period. And just to give you an example, Jupiter takes about a year in each zodiac sign. So it takes an entire 12 years to go through the zodiac cycle. So Jupiter, as it influences society and collective trends, it's going to govern the growth, expansion, wisdom, and abundance in that zodiac sign for that entire year. Now, that also means that for certain signs, they're not going to have Jupiter in their zodiac cycle until their 12-year cycle. So they're going to have their own personal 12-year cycle. And at one point during that personal 12-year cycle, Jupiter is going to help influence the collective trend towards their growth, expansion, wisdom, and abundance. Does that mean we can't access these things beyond those 1 year in the 12? No, but it does help you understand a little bit better how the planets work together so that you can understand um, how they're going to work in your own sign. And that's why oftentimes we'll hear things like, "Oh, Libra is going to be doing so good right now because this sign just came back into their existence, right?" And so that's where we're going to see these kinds of developments or these kinds of conversations because they're going around the amount of time it takes that planet to get into each sign.
And then Saturn is our next planet. And I like to think of her as the sacred crone, but on a more general level, the sacred elder, because Saturn is all about discipline, boundaries, structure, responsibility, mastery. And Saturn is very misunderstood. People fear Saturn because it makes us work. It makes us actually have to set the boundary, take responsibility, learn, and be a master of our craft. And it's not it's saying Saturn is saying that we worthy of those dreams that we have, but to be even more worthy of those dreams that we have to actually honor them and take action and set boundaries around them so that we can create them here on this planet before we leave. And so it's that elder who tells you, you are worthy, you are enough, you have everything you need. Now just go with it.
Saturn is also a planet that takes a little longer to move around. So each sign it stays in for 2.5 years. Okay. So the zodiac cycle for Saturn is 29 years. So you can think about on a 29-year cycle where it's going to come in and govern some of these things. So if you look at your own astrology and your own personal pattern, you can begin to see major life transitions that happened in certain time periods for yourself around either responsibility, mastery of things that you're trying to master in your own life, in systems and structure, or in just you being able to put forth certain discipline on things that you're pulling into your life. And these really do often have huge life indicators within your own life, and they usually are about every 29 years. You'll have these 2.5 years of just like real growth in these specific areas. And so if you look at your own astrology, you can kind of begin to see where Saturn was in there. Along your life pattern. Obviously, if Saturn was in there in the beginning, like when you were first born, you're not going to have Saturn again until you're almost 30. So, it's a great planet to be able to watch and see and understand how it's moving through your own personal planetary transitions.
And then next we have Uranus, the sacred awakener. And Uranus rules revolution, innovation, freedom, awakening, sudden change. It's like a lightning bolt of energy in your life, a cosmic lightning bolt. It disrupts anything that's stagnant or has been left dormant. And so it can be a more invasive kind of energy, but it also is an opportunity collectively when Uranus is in a more influenced position for as a collective to really hone in on our values and actually wanting to take steps for change, freedom, and awakening. And that's really important. And it has a huge cosmic influence on us. And sometimes when we look at our life and we're having a moment in our life that is a sudden change or a great awakening, we can look at what planets are in influence. And Uranus is often the planet that's in influence when you're having those moments in your life.
This planet is specifically in each sign for 7 years. So this is more of a generational planet. This is really a planet that's going to influence entire generations. So we're going to see generations that are governed by awakenings, by innovation. When we look back, we see things like the French Revolution, or when we see the science, the awakening of science, or the revolution of even like philosophy and things like that. If we were to look, we can see where this planet was in the trajectory of those 84 years. So people who are born in this same sign often share similar cultural shifts and values that are going to not just govern their life, but govern the way they process in the world. And they're going to be bringing in awakening, innovation, revelation, and freedom. They're meant to call in those things into our world, and they call them in because this is a planet that is majorly influenced in their life. And they're brought here into this time period to make those cultural shifts and values in people. That is their entire existence. So we can often see too, when we look at like big people in history, a lot of times they had this Uranus awakening within their early years. And so we see these big shifts that they were meant to do.
And then next we have Neptune, which is a mystical planet. The energy is about spirituality, intuition, dreams, dream consciousness, mysticism, psychic gifts, divine connection, and it has a aptitude to dissolve the boundaries between those worlds so that you can work in those realms if you feel so inclined, or maybe you're just gifted and do work in those worlds. It's where we experience spirit. So it's just a beautiful lifting of the veil planet that allows us to really dive deep during the time that it is in our chart.
Neptune isn't one of our other generational planets. This is a planet that takes about 14 years to go through each astrological sign. That means it's about 165 years. So Neptune is one of those planets that may or may not come through your own zodiac cycle. Because it governs spirituality, dreams, mysticism, collective ideals, we really see when Neptune comes in into our universe. We see, these big spiritual ideas come out. We're seeing, collective ideals that change. And right now, even we're in this Neptune place where we're seeing a lot of mysticism and a lot of generations that are just really allowing this exploration of spirituality. And sometimes the exploration may be focused more on travel. Say, for example, 165 years ago, when many people were still finding other parts of the world per se. There's also these big, huge explosions in philosophy, even 300 years before that. So we kind of can see where Neptune really pulls in these generational collective ideals, and where that becomes what builds the institute and authority around that specific around that specific generation and what they collectively build throughout their existence.
So then we have Pluto, who we consider the sacred alchemists. This is the cycle, the beginning and the end, and then the rebirth. So, death, rebirth, transformation, power, shadow work for evolution, shadow work for growth, evolution in general. And Pluto destroys what no longer serves something, so something stronger and more authentic can emerge.
So this is our 12 to 30-year time that it can be in each sign. Pluto's a very slow processor. It takes 248 years to go through the entire zodiac cycle. It orbits irregularly, so it spends very different amount of times in each sign. It's not as consistent as some of our other planets. And that's part of why it governs transformation, power, death and rebirth, and collective evolution, because we see it come in during those times. So during the generation of the baby boomers, which are like my parents were considered baby boomers. Pluto has been in Leo for them. So if you imagine Leo, Leo is this huge push for authenticity, this huge push for transformation, and this huge push for collectively growing and being seen and heard. Then we see Pluto move into Scorpio during the generation of the millennials. And so this is really this exploration, not only of emotions, but exploration of all systems that are no longer working. Scorpio looks at all the systems and then says, nope, that's no longer working. We're going to kick that out. Then as Pluto moves into Sagittarius, we have the younger millennials and the old Gen Z. So we've got, this aspect of movement, of fluidity, of questioning again systems, but also seeing what systems are working in place and what aren't. And then last, we have Pluto moving into Aquarius. And this is our current generation. This is the existence that we're currently in right now. And we're seeing huge death and rebirth in our current existence. Like June really is all about this continued movement of collective destruction of the systems and powers. This is that collective evolution of really tearing down the systems and the patterns and this patriarchal system that is no longer working for our current existence. And so there is this major duality going on right now in our current existence because Pluto is an Aquarius. It's this fight against, do we allow this growth and this collective evolution and power and transformation? Or do we fight against it and stay stuck into this old paradigm, these old systems that we know are no longer working for us? And so we're seeing a lot of that get blown up right now. And this is probably going to be, a whole year. This isn't going to be something that's going to stop in the next month or so. So now that we understand a little bit about how the planets move around, how they affect each of our different zodiac signs, but also how they are affecting our planet in general, now we can have a better understanding of the cosmic story of June 2026. So really, these planets are going to be interacted and they are dominated by three main archetypes. So we've got Cancer, and that really is calling in the mother. She's calling in the cries. She's no longer willing to accept this current existence. She is crying out and her cry will be heard. Her cry is heard by the warrior. The warrior is in Aries, and this is really what we're seeing right now, right? We're just seeing the devastation, the destruction of these systems, but also we're watching the devastation, and we all feel very stuck, like we don't have any way to control or do anything about what we're currently watching and seeing. So there's really this Aries, the warrior, but there's this Aries, the warrior, that is moving, but it's more of this quiet moving underneath. It's this
It's
quiet
anger
revolution.
that's anger that's building. Not necessarily the action steps, but the anger that's building. And
Mm,
that piece before the warrior goes into battle.
right. Yeah. Then we have last the messenger, and that's really where Gemini is going to be. So this is creating this collective consciousness of questioning everything, this collective consciousness of I can no longer speak non-truth, right? People are standing up, they are collectively waking up, and we're no longer being stuck in the devastation of what could be. We're just literally pushing through and asking the right questions. We're leading courageously to what is possible.
And adapting. I think that's a big part of it with the Gemini energy is that we are adapting. Tear down old systems and then we build back something different. And right now it's that part of building back. What does that look like? And having curiosity about what is coming and how we want it to look.
Yeah. So we've got the sun. The sun is moving in Gemini into Cancer. And first, we have, Gemini is at the first part of the month. So for the first half of the month, we've got this idea of like really building, gathering information, exploring, questioning. And then as we move into Cancer, it really becomes this aspect of what do I do with all of these things I've learned? So Gemini has the two faces. They're able, very much like Libra, to look at the shadow and light and see where it needs to be balanced. They're going to question, research, and explore to be able to gather the things that they need on both sides of the equation to be able to then come up with a proper conclusion, right? And then we've got Cancer come in that's very emotional, but very grounded in that emotion. And because of that grounding, it's really taking all the things that I've gathered and then trying to figure out how do I put these into play? How do I not just be a cup that is overfilling? How do I be a cup that is providing for other cups that is helping them overflow instead of just being overflowed with the information?
And then we have Mercury in Cancer. So when we talked about Mercury being all about communication, let's just break it down to something very simple. Communication in Cancer, Mercury in Cancer then becomes very heart centered, emotional. People are more sensitive, crying reason, bliss for no reason. It doesn't have to be a negative, it can be something so beautiful and positive. It's a great time for healing work, self healing. If you are a practitioner in the healing arts, to book your clients because you'll have more success with them during that time. Great for sister circles, ceremonial work, and deep transformation. So, if you're on a path of transformation, focusing on our hearts and what our heart is telling us, and not so much what our head is telling us, and then letting it guide us through that period of time.
Yeah, it's really going to be preparing us for moving into Leo. Like as Venus moves into Leo, it becomes a month of nurturing ourselves. It becomes a month of really being able to be seen because we spent the month of June preparing, researching, asking ourselves how we can put those things into practice. So then as we move into August, as we move into July, as we move into this like deep Leo season with Venus, we're able to begin seeing ourselves get recognized. We're able to have creative expression. We may have felt a little bit blocked in this time period when we're processing and when we're collecting. Now that creative expression is going to come back out, and we're really going to see, women in general because we're ruled by Venus. We're going to see women in general really like pushing through the witch wound, pushing through these pieces of staying small, hidden, or safe, and really knowing that I am confident in my medicine and I know the world needs my medicine. So I'm going to be present in that. I'm going to show the fuck up.
And the energy of it is pushing you towards your healing sacred business. This is the time pushing you towards joining like the path to priestess to build your community and quick growth so that you can be living your most authentic life. It's going to nurture that energy so that it can happen for you.
If you're really loving learning about astrology or the conversations that we're having today, we would love for you to be able to comment below on this podcast, share with a friend. And if you'd like to learn more about what Peace Not Perfection Academy does, we have a quiz below that will help you find your sacred path. So, Mars is our action planet. We're going to be moving Mars into Taurus. It's really going to be more of a slow and steady, not so much hustle energy, but this really slow, steady building of foundation. Um, you know, we're not yet in the harvest. So in June, we're moving into summer solstice. We're moving into planting things. We're moving into trusting the process that everything that I planted, that everything I worked for is going to come to fruitation in summer, right? In August, in that harvest. When we get to about August 1st and 2nd, we have literally Llamas. That's our harvest. That's where we're going to harvest from Taurus this steady, non hustle energy that we have built over June and July.
Because it's a very grounding energy. It's very earth oriented and connected to the earth. So the earth has a process and the process isn't rushed. It is just the system that's in place and it's slow and steady and it has a system. And that Taurus energy is very much like that. So we're not pushing, we're just grounding becoming one with the earth energies and flowing right into what comes later, which is the harvest. So you can build your foundation, you can plant your seeds, and you can trust the process and create your sacred garden, whatever that looks like in your life right now. This is the month for that building of your sacred garden. But we're not checking every day to see if they've sprouted. We're not checking every day to pull them. The garden, the flowers from the garden, we are watering them, nurturing them, grounding, so that or knowing and trusting that whatever we have planted will grow to fruition.
That really helps us because as we move into Cancer with Jupiter, we really have this expansion. So, this end of June is really going to be this expansion, but it's going to be a collective lesson of coming back home to yourself, coming back home to your family, coming back home to your intuition, coming back home to your emotions, and to actually being able to govern your own emotions and be in your body, be, regulated in that nurturing. So the Divine Mother is really through Jupiter in Cancer calling in this collective lesson of your intuition is everything. Your emotional wisdom is becoming the most important. Like the old paradigm cannot continue to ignore what is inside of me and my emotions and my ability to show up, to be seen, the information that I have available. That is the collective lesson. That is important. And so it helps me to build enough power within me to show up, to be seen.
And then we have Saturn and Neptune in that Aries energy. And Saturn is asking us, will we commit? And Neptune is asking us, can we dream? And then Aries, let's take action. So together they create a powerful spiritual connection that you can heal, let go. You can have a great awakening. You can have the opportunity to take steps forward where you haven't been able to before. And it is the energy of sacred leadership. So if you are on a path of being a sacred leader, maybe you're already in it and are wanting to expand your gifts and broaden what you do, this would be the energy that will support that completely and allow you to step fully into it. But you have to be willing and you have to begin to take steps. So there is your part. The energy brings you everything you need to take the steps that you know are meant for you, and you just have to begin.
Next, we have Uranus. It's moving into Gemini. We're going to be expecting huge downloads, unexpected ideas to be coming through. We're going to have sudden clarity within our mind, and we're going to be able to really access a lot of new teachings, technology, and conversations. Because remember, all these other planets are telling people your intuition matters. You can be seen, you can be heard. So now we're going to be able to go out and we're going to be able to see and hear all those new teachings, all those new conversations that these people that, the power of their intuition is giving them. And so we're really going to see a lot of good downloads for podcasting and teachers and writing and content creators. This is really a potent time for using your intuition, your lessons, and being able to constantly write them down. It's really important this month that you keep a journal close by because you're going to be receiving a lot of clear downloads that have been working themselves out over the last few months. And they're going to be very clear and direct within your intuition if you're using it and if you are working with it.
And we would love to hear what your downloads are and inspiration are. So comment below and let us know what comes up this month because it's fascinating to see how the divine works for each one of us. And I love to share it with the community because then it gives us an opportunity to go, what? I think I had a download similar, and sometimes we don't know we're receiving it. And it gives us an opportunity to validate yeah, that was something that came from the divine. That is an inner urging that I have been tampering down because maybe there's a self-worth block or this or that. And then we can acknowledge it. And once you acknowledge the download you're receiving, then it's so much easier to take action. So comment below if you've had any great insight this month. We'd love to hear from you.
Pluto is really leading this month with this deep transformation. It's not moving quickly. It's something that just needs to die to know that something greater is to be born. And so while Aquarius is focusing on this community and groups and humanity and the collective of what we're calling in forward, it's allowing women who are walking the sacred path to move forward. They're no longer in their lone witch energy. They're moving towards sacred community. The age of isolated healer has ended and the age of sisterhood is emerging. And as that sisterhood emerges, as our leaders and guides and mentors come forward, we begin to see the sacred community being built and this new earth that we're calling in being built within the collective and within humanity. And if this is something that really interests you and you want to learn more about being a professional priestess, maybe you want to learn about breath work, movement, or how to support people during this humanity and collective upgrade, then we would suggest that you take the quiz survey below. It's going to support you in finding your sacred path with peace, not perfection. And professional priestess is one of those secret paths where we train and equip women in their sacred business to be able to lead others on the spiritual journey.
Then to wrap this up, because we're coming into uh, a lot of information. You've learned a little bit about how the planets affect us. You've learned a lot about how certain signs this month are going to collectively influence us. So let's break it down as to what we're doing in the month and how to work with June's energy. So number one, we're trusting our intuition before we're seeking outside validation. And here at Peace Not Perfection, we teach women how to trust their inner magic because no one outside of us is going to tell us what's truth for us more than what's truth for us internally. Yes, there are gifted people who can pull it right out of you, but it's better to discover that within. So trusting our intuition is really important. Sharing our gifts instead of hiding them. This is a month where we're going to be coming into these gifts, maybe more and more, and then taking action. So sharing them, don't hide them. Help others. We're here to be in service. And then taking that consistent action instead of waiting for perfection. And that's just a very general statement, but I think a lot of us hesitate before we actually move forward because we think we have to have everything in place in order to do it. No, you don't. You can be a healer or have a sacred healing business and still be learning along the way. They're just more tools for your tool belt. They are more expansion for your mind and evolution for your business and who you are as a sacred healer or leader. So take the action, do the training, take the action, do more training, but do the action. And focusing on building foundations and systems that actually work and work long term. This Taurus energy is going to support you in that building foundations that work long term. Strengthening your communications with your sisterhood community, with your community. It doesn't matter how you do it, but creating a community, getting more into your community if you have one, and allowing yourself to be visible and leading through your heart. Those are very important takeaways from the month of June energies.
June's not asking you to become someone new. It's asking you to become the most full person that you can become. This mother energy of Cancer wants you to trust your wisdom. The warrior energy of Aries wants you to take action. And the messenger energy of Gemini wants you to share your voice. When we share our voice and we create one powerful message together, we really believe in the collective, and together they create one powerful message. You've learned enough, you've healed enough, you've prepared enough. Now is the time to lead. Until next time, priestesses, live in peace, not in pieces, and keep walking your sacred path. Peace out, witches.